MTN SME Hub. Link to growth. Link to success. Link to the ultimate resource for business advice and insights.
Welcome back to the Big Small Business Show, and in studio with us we've got Lolo Ndlovu. He's the founder of Sneaker Shack, and they've done something so interesting. They've taken what seems to be a low barrier to entry business and they've made it a big scaling business. I don't think it's scaled as yet, but it's certainly on the way. 12 stores, more to come, and lots and lots of employees who stay and get paid well. Okay, but let's talk about you spoke about in the insert about going international, and then you also spoke about the model. So let's just touch on the international. And so my question when I watched that was, like, why wouldn't they just do it themselves? What do you have from a technology? You keep speaking about technology. I'm trying to sort of scratch in here. What do you have that they want?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't think we speak sort of fundamentally about this, secret IP that we hold, because I don't think that's really there. I think, when we see sort of, overseas opportunities, opportunities that present themselves abroad, it's often people that have been to South Africa, that have experienced our product, that go there and say, hey, listen, there's a huge opportunity here. So I don't think, none of my team have really spent enough time there to kind of, go and sort of check out the lay of the land and say, hey, we have an opportunity. It's always sort of like, it comes back to us and people say that. So, we're interested in the prospect. Middle East seems to be one of the more interesting ones. I think for obvious reasons, if you look at South Africa and Middle East, that's like the carbon on steroids. It's very similar to sort of South African, spending demographic. A lot of the kind of habitual aspects of the consumer, are very similar. Europe is a huge one. We've seen interest around, Belgium, Germany, France. We just don't really know enough, and I have the same sort of it's a surprise, I guess. This is something that they could do themselves. But I think we also see a lot of expats, for example. People that are South African that are there that want something to be, proudly South African that's representing them in some aspect abroad.
Okay, so your branding, I just wrote here, your branding is phenomenal. I think the one thing, and we're going to talk about that later when we try and sum this up. You spoke about you were wanting information around the different business models. So what are the different business models that you're contemplating? Is it franchise? Is it what are the different owner-operated? What are you battling with?
So at the moment, there are three models, right? Right now, all sneaker shacks are owner-operated. And I have a sort of massive question on that sort of model and its sustainability. We're about 80 employees in at the moment. I have a management team of about 6. We're about to get in a lot more sort of retail people that can look after stores as we scale. Tons of question marks around that. Second one, which we've been looking really sort of close into, with roughly around 300 to 400 existing franchise requests sitting in our mailbox. Yet to exercise any of that, but we're undergoing the process of obtaining all the licensing, figuring out sort of that model. Massive question marks on whether that's the way to scale. The big considerations there are like, how do you maintain the quality? Sneaker Shack, essentially the barriers are low, and what we've really sort of invested in is the quality of the brand and the product. The way we train employees, the service element of it is really our holy grail. How do those skills transfer in franchising? That's the kind of questions I have around that. And the third one is how ready is South Africa for a digital play on services? Right, we have a pickup and delivery service, which we launched about 2 years ago. The hope was that would have sort of outgrow any other sort of, or the growth rate would be higher than any other sort of store number. On the contrary, I think stores are continue to grow a lot faster than our pickup and delivery service, which kind of leaves this big question mark on like, should we go industrial dark laundry and then just have this huge digital presence where there's an app and do we have too many apps? So those are the kind of 3 ways we could scale. One is sort of brick and mortar asset heavy, and the one is slightly sort of asset light, and the other one is obviously franchising. And
there's a fourth one, which I think you've touched on, which is the partnerships like you did with Virgin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that would be partnership. I basket the partnerships with the kind of corporate owned stores, because if you could scale as a store-in-store model, then that's fantastic, because then you can really essentially control all those aspects of quality through those partnerships.
How are you controlling quality?
So at the moment, as we scale, a lot of question marks around how we are able to sustain that effectively. A lot of the weight does lie on branch managers and the coaching that they get from head office. We spend more than 6-7 hours a month just trying to get that coaching around quality, double checking of sneakers, the introduction of new materials, basically just trying to stay on top of things. There's a ton of weight that sits on actual branch managers on the ground at the moment. And I think trying to figure out ways of, how many more layers do we add on to that? I think on the ground, really, people that are our technicians that are doing the day-to-day training, what we find is it's so difficult to have these sort of interventions for training during the week, because they have to just kind of they've got a job to do. So it becomes so tedious to say, hey, let's block out 3 hours, let's go through this training. That's becoming more and more difficult as we grow and become busier. But it's fundamentally what you need to be doing all the time. So what we're seeing is you're having to hire more people so you can allow people to go out and train, then come back into stores. Which again, I think is kind of a scale problem, which is so much of a longer conversation that it's kind of this square that we're trying, or the circle that we're trying to sort of square.
Last question for me is around your management team. You touched on them. Just explain to me, you've got your branch managers at the head office level. Have you got an exco or some level heads of department? What do you have there?
Yeah. Okay. So we have 12 branch managers across each branch, and then they report to our head of operations. And head of operations, basically takes care of stores, takes care of logistics, and all things sort of the kind of heartbeat of operations. We also have a head of marketing who takes care of our brand, partnerships, all things marketing. We have our head of customer experience, CX and support, so taking care of all the aspects of all things customer and all things support. I think just to kind of put it plainly. And then we have someone that takes care of maintenance and training in stores. So that's the kind of sort of setup of stores. And then I kind of sit as kind of overarching, trying to tap into as many of those that I can. Mainly my focus at the moment is around the scale model. What scale looks like, and what what kind of brand needs to be supporting this type of scale, or how do we position ourselves in the market? Should we scale in a certain way?
Lolo, that's all we got time for from our questions. When we come back, I'll give Lolo some things to think about.
MTN SME Hub, link to business success.